When introducing a new player to the game, let's face it, there is definitely a right way and a wrong way. So let's talk about that. What is up, Commander players? My name is Matt and you're watching Top Commander. So, we're finally back at it. Made it through Thanksgiving weekend, everything. Sorry about the absence. Wednesday, of course, we did my son's birthday. He just turned 2 years old, which kind of inspired the topic for this episode, which is introducing new players to Commander. Now, of course, this topic varies, especially depending on ages of the people that you're introducing to the game. But before I dive too much into it, if you wish to support this channel, be sure to like, share, and subscribe as always. And if you wish to support this channel directly, be sure to visit patreon.com/topcommander. But with that out of the way, so Commander is a growing format. We have people coming into the format all the time, whether it's from other formats playing Magic already, or just new players wanting to learn how to play the game. But let's face it, there is definitely a correct way and a wrong way. Now these, of course, vary depending on ages, of course. But so this whole process started when last week was my son's 2-year birthday. And it got me thinking. I was like, as a parent, you want your children to learn how to play Magic with you. You know, that's just always going to be a thing when it comes to parents that are, you know, quote-unquote nerds. But then it got me thinking again, how do you introduce a child to Commander? Obviously, he's not going to learn it at 2 years old yet. Let's get a couple of more years under his belt, you know, so he's used to reading and doing some of the math a little bit. But how would you introduce that to your child? Obviously, when they come up and ask, hey, can I learn how to play? But at that point in time, you don't want to say, oh, well, yeah, sure, pull out a Storm deck and then try to teach them on that. Let's face it, that's not the proper way to do it, because this game can be very complicated. So, especially for a child that age, you want to make it as simple as possible. Make it as easy as possible, because playing as a person who already plays Commander, or has played Magic for a while, we already know that this game can be very complicated. The amount of rules, the interaction, the steps and phases, there is so much going on in this game that it can be very overwhelming for a new person. Even for somebody who's older, can be overwhelmed by how many different rules and interactions and things are in this game. So how do we really introduce it? Well, again, back to the age. If you're introducing your child to the game, you want to make it as simple as possible. You're not going to show them a card like Nib Mizzet Reborn. That's just not going to be a thing. A card that looks cool, he's 5 colors, he's a 6/6 flying dragon, but he's got a wall of text. And honestly, let's face it, that wall of text could be confusing for the child. Now, could you show this to somebody that's getting into the game that's close to, you know, your age, that's, you know, maybe in their 20s or even 30s? Yes, I believe you could. Could you introduce them with an infinite combo storm type deck? Storm, probably not so much. An infinite combo, as long as they understand, you have to get them to understand how the infinite combo works. I'm of the mindset that I stumble upon infinite combos just by having synergies in my deck, so, and even I Even in those moments, I fumble over them because I'm trying to figure out and trying to explain how it works. I'm not very good at it, so I try to stay away from infinite combos, but like I said, I stumble upon them. So, some people, it just depends. They may not be all into the infinite combo shenanigan. They could very well not be into Storm. If it's a young, if it's your own child wanting to learn how to play this game, keep it simple. Now, of course, you're not going to teach them with Storm. You're not going to teach them with infinite combos because those can be very complex. The interaction, the timing, the priority, and things like that take effect, and that can be overwhelming, obviously. So, especially for a child, what are some really good commanders to get them started? Honestly, when I saw this from Jumpstart, or not Jumpstart, Commander Legends, because we just had Commander Legends release, and there was a couple of really good commanders, especially ones that if you really look at them, a lot of them are very simple, a lot of them are very easy. They don't have a wall of complicated text. So, let's start off with Kanji's Skywarden. This was a lot of already kind of seasoned Commander players thought of this card as very meh. But when you look at it in terms of, oh, well, my child wants to learn how to play, this is a great card, actually, because it's very simple. 3 generic, a white and a blue, for a 3/3 legendary creature bird wizard, has flying and vigilance. So you have flying, you have vigilance, you can teach them keywords. Okay. Whenever Kanji attacks, attacking creatures with flying get +2/+0 until end of turn. That sounds pretty simple, right? When Kanji blocks, blocking creatures with flying get +0/+2 until end of turn. That is actually sounding like a very easy build to start teaching a child how to play. It's flyer tribal, it's going to be combat oriented, obviously, so you just get together a couple of decks that are able to play with each other, and you start teaching them with this. Now, does that mean that in the 99 of this deck that you put in something that has a lot of confusing text on it? No. Like I said, keep it simple. Even if all you're doing is putting in a Healer's Hawk in this deck, and you just keep it low to the ground, small birds that fly, there's nothing wrong with that. Because you're teaching the child how to play, obviously. And as they get used to the rules and everything, you can introduce some new stuff to the party to teach them. Would you start them off with counter spells? Probably not. Probably not right away, at least. But now, when it comes to somebody that's older, maybe it's closer to your age, what kind of cards would you introduce them to starting off? What kind of commander would be an okay commander to start them off with? That's a good question. It kind of depends on... Honestly, at that point, it's not a matter of... It's hard to explain this one. I feel like if they're a certain age, obviously, you can start them off with something like Feather the Redeemed. Yes, there's a wall of text, but the wall of text kind of cuts through itself a little bit. This is also very much depending on how much this person is grasping the game. So, even if Feather is a little too advanced and you want to get them with something a little bit more simpler, I mean, Kamal, Heart of Krosa, one of the new partner commanders from Commander Legends, was absolutely amazing and fits the bill pretty well. Now, would you use Kamal for a child? Again, depending on the age and depending on how well they're grasping some of the simpler rules. Especially when Kamal, if Kamal just said at the beginning of of combat on your turn, creatures you control get +3/+3 and trample until end of turn, that would be fine. But the part where Kamal can be tricky for younger players coming into the game is the activated ability. Because then you've got the question popping up of, well, wait, that's a land? I thought that, or that land becomes a creature, but I thought it was a land. So is it a land or is it a creature? This destroys non-land, so this doesn't kill the creature because it's a land. You know, you see where this is going. Again, you want to keep it as simple as possible. But could you introduce somebody who's maybe in their 20s or 30s, somebody that's older? Obviously, yes. This is actually a pretty good one to start them off with, in my opinion. Again, it also depends on how well they're grasping it. So, what if they don't want to necessarily do too much combat? What about a commander like Kembal? Console of Allocation. He has an ability on him that says whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Is that a good commander to start somebody off with? Actually, I believe so. I'm not saying that any of these have to be fully optimized. I'm not saying they have to be built to, you know, the highest level that they can be. They don't have to be the most finely tuned deck versions of these. I'm saying that if you were to keep it simple, this is actually a pretty good commander. Kembal, definitely anybody can start off with Kembal. I believe even a child can start off with Kembal because now they're learning a little bit of what is a creature, what's not a creature. Oh, you lose 2 life, I gain 2 life. They learn that trigger, and you can still have the deck a little bit more combat oriented in the 99, which is kind of cool. But now, would you go as far as giving a child complete aristocrats? Probably not. That's a lot for them to... I feel like that's a little overwhelming because you have to sack this, do that, this trigger happens, this activated ability happens, Viscera lets you scry 1, you play this, each opponent loses 1, and you gain 1, and then you sack this, and everybody loses 1, you gain 1, this dies, that creates a token. You see where aristocrats can be a problem for, especially a child. Even for some older people that are getting into the game that are in their 20s and 30s, that could be a little bit overwhelming, just trying to remember all these triggers that are happening all at once. And then learning the fact that, oh yeah, well, you have to pass priority, you know, you can pass priority, you can hold priority, your opponents have a chance to respond to this or that, you can do this, you can do that. That's a lot going on. So aristocrats and Storm are definitely not things that you would want to introduce a new player. Anything that leads into a specific line of play that wins the game, some of those lines of play can be very complicated and very complex to get to. So you want to stay away from those for new players especially, and definitely for younger players until they get a little bit older or more used to the game, either one, whichever one happens first. Honestly, I feel like there's nothing wrong with creating a couple of commander decks that are designed for new players in these situations. They're brand new to the game, they haven't played very long, so have a couple of commander decks in your arsenal that are designed for new player friendly, you know, things. Those particular games. You don't want to be like, oh, you're a new player, it's okay, I'll teach you the hard way and bust out this infinite combo shenanigan. Yeah, try to stay away from that. Try to make it simple, keep it friendly, because what is going to end up happening is you want the person to enjoy the game. You want them to learn the game. You don't want to bust out something, freak them out, win on turn 3, and then they're like, wow, this game really is stupid and busted, and then they don't want to play anymore. It is our job in the community to foster the right mentality, the right attitude towards new players. We want new players to come into the game. Because, let's face it, as long as we have new players and we keep players happy and everybody is having fun and Wizards is still making money, we will continue to have this game. If it gets to a point where people are not playing the game as much anymore, we start losing a bunch of players and they just stop playing, and Wizards is making hardly any money, now we get less product. Or, even worse, they could just stop making the game. Now, the purpose of this game is for us to all have fun. We all have to remember that. So we have to make sure that we are fostering the right mentality, and especially when it comes to new players. We want new players to come into the game because that means more product. That incentivizes Wizards to keep making more cards, more sets, maybe giving us more product. This year was the year of Commander, and we had 9 Commander precons. Granted, 5 of them were the main yearly Commander product, but the last 2 sets with Commander Legends and with Zendikar Rising, each one of those sets had 2 $25, they were like $20 to $25 Commander precons, which was mostly reprints, that are, again, also pretty decent starting product for new players to come into the game. And they had some really good reprints. Let's face it, that Anawan deck had amazing reprints in there. So it's just very apparent. It should be very apparent to people that we must foster the right attitude, especially with new players, to keep the game thriving. It is up to us. It is up to the player base. Wizards is not necessarily coming up to new players and saying, hey, want to get a game in. Wizards is creating the game. They're not necessarily going door to door introducing people. We are introducing our children, our friends, our family, our co-workers, and it's our responsibility as players that want this game to thrive to be responsible and be cautious of how we go about it to bring these new players into the game. I actually was thinking about this when, my son's birthday was just last week. He just turned 2. And I was already thinking as a dad, because I'm just really excited, I'm like, okay, what kind of Commander deck do I need to have ready for him? And it got me thinking about this episode. I was like, okay, I got a new idea for an episode. But of course, that's just the dad in me. I'm being a little overzealous, and I'm really excited. I can't wait for my child to grow up and get a little bit older to start learning how to play Commander, because I feel like that would just be great. That would just be just a lot of fun. Being able to sit down with your child and play Commander, or they come home from school and be like, all right, finish your homework and we can get a game in. I mean, come on. As a dad who plays Commander, this is any dad, right? Let's face it, that's any dad. You cannot wait until your child is old enough to sit down and play games with you and to have fun and be able to have that bonding like that. That's just going to be a thing. Let's face it. Anybody that tells you otherwise they probably need to stop being so uptight and just break out of your shell. You know you're excited for that moment. That day is one that you were waiting for to show up. But yeah, this was just kind of my brief thoughts on the subject, and let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are you a parent with a, are you a parent that has a child that's getting ready to learn, or are you just waiting for them to get older and ask and learn how to play? Do you have friends or family that are just getting into the game? What kind of commanders did you start them off with? How well is that process going, or did something happen? Maybe we can figure out something about fixing a problem that might have happened if that did happen. But let me know down in the comments below what you guys think, and I will see you guys next video.